Hi kids, guess who? It's me. I'm putting this little video out there later in the week. I normally don't do this, but I've been getting some inquiries that I thought I could address more quickly and effectively by just doing a quick little video rather than trying to type everything out, okay? So first off, the capstone project. The capstone project assignment sheet is as clear as I can possibly make it. It is a result, that piece of paper you're looking at is a result of several hours of work on my part to make this as clear as possible. So if you haven't read it and you don't understand, that's why you don't understand, because you haven't read the instructions. If you have read the instructions and still don't understand, then here's the deal. You've been studying certain elements of fiction and certain elements of poetry. You've been discovering and talking about how fiction and poetry work. You've been just talking about the technology, in a sense, of the way these things are written. We've been studying that all term. Now is your chance to apply that stuff to a larger piece. We've been limited by the short stories are short, poems are short, and that has limited our ability to really apply this material. So now you've had this novel that presumably you've been working on for the last 12 weeks and reading and thinking about in terms of what you've been learning in class. There would be no reason whatsoever to expect that the novel project would be anything different from what you've been learning in class. To expect that would be like taking a calculus class and then expecting to write your paper on art history. That would never happen. That doesn't make any sense. That's not what you've learned. So take what you've learned in these smaller units, apply it to the larger unit. It's really that simple. And then, because in a larger project, one reaches the limit of one's knowledge, you're going to reach the limit of what you have learned. Then it's when you go out and do the research to bring into the conversation people who know more than you do, or who have studied more than I have, or who have been at it longer than we have. Bring in those experts to support your exploration. Start with your exploration. When you reach the limit of what you've learned, then expand that on your own using outside experts. That's what a research paper is. But the capstone project is exactly what we've been studying for the last 12 weeks, made larger and made more sophisticated by the fact that you're working within a larger format. To be honest with you, I'm still not grasping why that isn't clear, but for some folks it isn't. So there it is. Read your novel, analyze your novel in terms of one or more of the elements that we've been talking about all term. Apply your knowledge to the analysis of the novel. Take a critical stance on the novel, and then when you reach the limit of your knowledge, find some other people to talk to by doing the research and applying that research. It's a logical, step-by-step process from smaller to larger. But there's nothing, this capstone project is not out in left field. It's just the logical conclusion of the work that we've been doing in both critical thinking and literary analysis all term. Again, it's as clear as I can possibly make it, and I don't mind asking questions, but I really don't know what else to say other than what I've already said. I can repeat myself 1,000 times, but if it's not getting through, it's not going to get through. I don't know any other way to say it. So that's what the capstone project is. That's why we started on it 12 weeks ago, and some of you I know have been working on it for 12 weeks or working on it for a while and thinking and talking about it. I know if you're a typical class, I know some of you haven't even picked your novel and started on it yet. That's going to be a disaster for you. But again, that was your choice. You're adults, and that was the choice that you made, and you're free to make that choice. Okay, the other thing is, in terms of sources, the chats this week that ask you to take a look at your sources and judge how credible they are on a scale of 1 to 10, that was designed deliberately to get you thinking first and foremost, because this is the most important. What is your evaluation of your source? It was to give you the challenge to use your own thinking, your own critical thinking abilities to evaluate a source. So the question those chats are asking is, if you picked up this source and you read it, what will be your judgment? You're adults, you're intelligent people, you're pretty good critical thinkers. You pick up a source, you're going to make a judgment. So is this person to be trusted or completely not to be trusted, and why? So it begins with your own personal analysis of the source. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've been through this class, you've learned how to make those judgments, or how to begin making those judgments. So that was the purpose of this chat this week. I made the assumption rather naively that I'd be able to get in and help everybody, but it's clear that this, to me now, it's Thursday morning sometime. It's 12:30 here in Indiana, 9:30 in California. Pretty clear. Most folks are going to, as always, going to leave it till the last minute, and that means I won't possibly be able to help you because there's going to be too many of you jamming in at the last minute. So I'm not going to be able to help to the extent that I would like to, but I'm going to spend some time this morning evaluating and advising the people who managed to get posts up so far. I'm going to pop in and try to advise you and help you. Anyway, once you've used your own personal judgment, then you would want to go and see there are certain rules by which in the academic world we judge a source to be credible. But that academic judgment should come after your personal judgment. Your personal judgment should be the first thing. Is this believable or not? Yes or no, and why? You can answer that question for yourself. You don't need authority to answer the question about what you think. Then when you hold that thing up and do it in a formal research process, yeah, then you have to gauge it on the basis of external standards. And I'll talk about that in just a second. And the big deal with the source is, other than the things that you're going to look at in the lists I'm going to talk about in just a second, do I believe the source because I already agree with it, and am I overlooking the fact that it's not a good source because I agree with it? Or am I criticizing a source because I don't agree with it, and I'm overlooking the fact that it's a strong argument? It's getting worse and worse in our culture, and it's been getting worse for a long time, that I tend to agree with what I already agree with and disagree with what I already disagree with, and I refuse to look with a clear mind critically at an argument and then say I agree with it because it makes sense, not because I happen to agree with it, or I disagree with it because it's a lousy argument, not just because I happen to disagree with it. That's the step that educated people make, and that's the push in this class, is to use your critical mind, not your emotions, to judge your sources, and you're capable of doing this. So that was the step, that was the deal with this first discussion. However, I understand that you're concerned, and rightly so, about what credible means in the academic world. So again, those are judgments, then they're very similar to your personal judgments. If you find something not credible, then chances are it's not going to be credible in the academic world either. But I've put up 3 sources. They're in this week's module, and I think the paper is called Credible Sources, I think. Anyway, there's something down at the bottom of the screen. You click on that, it's going to open you up to 3 links. I'm not sure if they're hyperlinked out, or you may have to copy and paste them, but there are 3 links there that I found on the web that are pretty good ways of judging from an academic standpoint whether a source is credible or not. You can go to those sources. The Purdue Owl has some stuff. There's some stuff in your handbook. And if you don't like any of those, then just Google how to find a credible source, and you'll find scads of other stuff. I found like a dozen pages of ways to do this. But remember, you have developed the ability to make these judgments in this class and in others. And so the academic standards by which we judge the credibility of a source, those are in addition to your own trained critical mind. Not instead of, but in addition to. So that's the natural logical sequence that these things should follow. The Capstone Project is what it is. I've explained it very carefully. I've now explained it again as carefully as I possibly can. And in fact, the logic of the thing should say that the stuff you studied in class is the stuff you'd apply on the final exam. That's logical. That's expected in any college level class. And the stuff that you studied in class, the stuff you studied in class would be on the final exam, and the final exam would not be something that you hadn't studied in class. That's logic. You'd expect that in any college class. This one's the same. Look at what you've learned, then apply it to your novel. Okay, that's the best I can do. And then in terms of the sources, remember, you're adults. You're intelligent adults. You can figure this out. You don't need me or any other academic guru to figure it out for you. You start with what you know. You start with your own trained instincts. And then you add to that the academic standards. It's not instead of, but in addition to, added to, so that you grow as a thinker. I've been seeing the slogan on somebody's t-shirt, think while you can while it's still legal, or think critically while it's still legal, something like that. Keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to get this up for you and send it out. Check out those sources, and then I'll get into the forums and I'll do my best to help advise, evaluate the people who've done it so far. I'll do my best to help you. Bye.